Some plants simply add beauty, others bring warmth. But the ficus, this is a different presence entirely. This is the plant you place when you're ready to mean what you build, when your home stops being a backdrop and starts becoming a statement. It doesn't just soften the edges of a room, it holds the room upright. It stands tall, not as decoration, but as declaration. It doesn't compete for attention like the flashier tropicals, nor does it whisper gently like vines that trail along windows. The ficus is posture-made plant. In Feng Shui, we read spaces not only for color or light or layout, but for alignment, whether what you say you want and what your space communicates are actually the same thing. And for those who are entering the chapter of self-definition, of taking responsibility not just for comfort but for structure, the ficus is a quiet sentinel of that maturity. It's not the first plant you get when you're experimenting. It's the one you get when you're anchoring. When your career is no longer something you hope for, but something you are shaping. When your identity is no longer on a vision board, but already blooming through the daily work. The ficus is for builders, not just of wealth, but of rhythm. It's for people who aren't simply living in their homes, but who are now designing lives with precision and pride. And maybe that's exactly where you are right now. Maybe you're at that moment in your journey where external inspiration isn't what you need anymore. What you need is an internal compass. And in Feng Shui, the ficus provides that compass, not in noise, not in movement, but in form. It holds the same energy you're trying to cultivate, upright, focused, and quietly unwavering. In today's video, we're going far beyond soil and sunlight. We're going to explore what the ficus actually symbolizes when you bring it into your home, and how its placement, care, and even its posture reflect back the energetic themes of your adult life. We'll talk about where to position it, what mistakes to avoid, and how to work with it intentionally to reinforce growth that doesn't just look good, but feels grounded. We'll also share a true story involving one of the world's most respected women, a global leader who used the presence of ficus plants in her post-White House home as more than design. She used them as a quiet, intentional way to support her next chapter. And I promise you, by the time you reach the end of this video, you'll never look at this plant or the walls of your own home the same way again. Before we dive deeper, I want to pause and ask something of you. If you've been using your living space, your study, your home office, or even your hallway as a mirror for who you're becoming, if you're choosing items with care, if you're letting go of things that no longer match your path, if you're learning to honor what your energy needs instead of what the world demands, then this channel was made for you. Your journey isn't just about chasing the next goal. It's about building an ecosystem that holds you in clarity and strength. If that resonates with you, I'd love for you to help me grow this shared space. Please leave a like, share this video with someone who's also stepping into their next phase, and subscribe to New Day Mindfulness. We're moving toward 2,000 subscribers, and with each new voice, this quiet movement of grounded design and intentional living expands. Your support doesn't just help the algorithm, it helps the message reach people who aren't just seeking luck or decor tips. They're seeking alignment, and that's what this space is for. Now let's get into it, because the ficus isn't just a plant, it's a signal, a posture, a message to your space and to yourself that you're done waiting to become the person you were always meant to be. You're building it now. Let's explore how this living structure can support that intention from the ground up. Number 1, the energy signature of the ficus. The ficus doesn't enter a room to decorate it, it steps in to define it. Whether you're working with the thick, elegant leaves of Ficus elastica or the sculptural broad foliage of Ficus lyrata, this plant is not subtle in form, even if its energy is quiet. In Feng Shui, we don't only observe objects for how they look, but for what they energetically pronounce. And the ficus pronounces a clear message. this space is held. It rises vertically with the kind of unwavering clarity that instantly stabilizes a room that otherwise feels indecisive. Its presence is not flowing or trailing. It does not sprawl across the ground or climb outward looking for direction. It stands tall. It moves upward. It acts as a pillar, a spine, a vertical axis around which the rest of the room organizes. In Feng Shui, this represents upright wood energy associated with clarity, career momentum, decision-making, and personal purpose. Where trailing vines reflect yin or water qualities, and flowering plants often radiate active yang bursts, the ficus harmonizes these forces into direction. Not just energy, but aligned energy. Not just growth, but growth with purpose. This is why when you bring a ficus into a space, you are not only bringing in nature, you are reintroducing hierarchy and discipline into that environment. This isn't the plant of whimsy or emotional overflow, it's the plant of internal calibration. When placed correctly, it offers the room a sense of architectural strength, even in open or abstract layouts. It says, here is where the core begins. And for many people transitioning into a new phase of adulthood, career alignment, or self-structure, this is exactly the message that needs to be held within the walls. A home filled with scattered intentions, overly relaxed furniture, soft lines, and emotionally diffused colors can sometimes feel too fluid to support real momentum. The ficus brings in the yang quality that isn't loud or chaotic, but responsible. And that responsibility is often the very ingredient missing from rooms that are beautiful, but not productive. The energy signature of the ficus reveals itself most in how it behaves in its container. It does not require constant pruning, yet it needs to be observed. It doesn't scream for attention, but it doesn't tolerate neglect. It speaks through posture. When the trunk begins to lean, when the leaves begin to curl inward, when the dust coats its bold green with dull gray, it is telling you that your space has begun to mirror internal conflict or hesitation. And the ficus, in all its uprightness, begins to see, not because it is weak, but because the foundation around it is no longer aligned. In this way, the plant becomes a living feedback tool for your inner discipline. It reflects your steadiness or your drift. Its thick stems and rooted structure are not merely horticultural traits. They are energetic metaphors for what you must offer yourself in seasons of decision, build, or redefinition. Whereas a pothos might bring softness to an emotional space, and a peace lily might cleanse stagnant chi from grief-ridden corners, the ficus is an amplifier of intent. It does not soothe, it does not distract, it does not coax. It confronts with dignity. That's why it is one of the few plants in Feng Shui that is better suited for those who are already stepping into responsibility rather than those who are still navigating emotional uncertainty. Because its frequency doesn't rescue, it reinforces. It holds the line. It affirms what's already been chosen. That's what makes it powerful. But it also what makes it unsuitable for spaces that are still undecided in their function or identity. In personal energy terms, the ficus carries the imprint of adulthood in its most honorable form. Not the exhaustion of duty, but the sovereignty of self-definition. Its chi matches the time in life when you're no longer simply exploring, but refining. When every action is no longer an experiment, but a contribution to a larger arc. The ficus supports you when you're not trying to figure out who you are anymore, but rather when you're building what you are here to create. That is why it is perfect for offices, studios, and transitional hallways where people often pause to think. It's ideal for spaces where vision is drafted and future moves are considered. Because its chi does not follow you like a pet, it stands still like a mentor. And in that stillness, it demands clarity from the space itself. In homes where too many decorative items compete for attention, Where textures overtake function and where comfort has morphed into aimlessness, the ficus becomes a quiet correction. Its form reminds the space that boundaries matter. That direction has value. That in a world where energy often spills in every direction, there is still power in knowing where you're headed. And it doesn't just affect the physical layout. Energetically, it helps dissolve patterns of indecision. People have reported feeling a greater sense of reset when working or reading near a ficus, not because it releases essential oils or has metaphysical magic, but because its vertical posture creates an anchoring effect. It strengthens your nervous system's connection to verticality, the natural stance of humans when we are alert, aware, and present. Sitting next to a ficus reminds your body to stop slouching, to lift your chest, to make decisions from the center. That's why the ficus is not recommended in bedrooms, especially for people who are navigating emotional turbulence or heartbreak. Its chi is too directive. It is not nurturing in the way a peace lily or hydrangea might be. Place a ficus in your most decisive rooms. Rooms where clarity is asked to show up daily. In rooms where you don't need emotional softness, but energetic reinforcement. And once it's there, give it the respect it deserves. Clean its leaves. Rotate it for balanced light. Place it in a planner that reflects grounded elegance. Wood, ceramic, or metal. Never plastic, never tucked behind furniture. The ficus is not a backdrop, it is a backbone. Give it room to stand tall, and you will find that your own life begins to rise to match it. Number 2, best placement for maximum impact. Where you place a ficus isn't just a stylistic choice, it's a declaration of intent. In Feng Shui, every corner of a home holds a specific energetic role, and placing the wrong plant in the wrong position doesn't just waste its potential, it actively weakens your home's ability to support your goals. The ficus plant, with its powerful upward momentum and stable, wood-dominant energy, needs room to breathe and space to lead. That's why its optimal locations are not just about visual appeal. They are strategic, energetic alignments that reinforce structure, career identity, and long-term discipline. Start with the living room. This is often the heart of the home, not emotionally, but directionally. It's the space that receives energy and projects it forward. In Feng Shui, the southeast corner of the living room is traditionally associated with wealth, growth, and long-term strategy. When a ficus is placed here, especially one with a strong vertical presence like the fiddle leaf or rubber tree variety, it acts as an amplifier for financial clarity and career visibility. But the benefit doesn't stop there. In homes where the south quadrant of the living room intersects with large windows or consistent sunlight, placing the ficus in that direction supports recognition and life mission, reinforcing personal branding for those who are in leadership or creative fields. Imagine sitting in that room each morning, sipping your tea, and catching the first glance of this proud plant rising upward beside you. It becomes more than a green fixture. It becomes your structural mirror, the part of your space that reminds you to carry yourself with purpose. Then consider the home office. Whether you're an entrepreneur, a freelancer, or someone navigating hybrid corporate life, the workspace you occupy is one of the most critical Qi zones in modern living. The ficus is practically made for this territory. Unlike trailing plants that can soften or diffuse a space, the ficus sharpens it. It cuts through mental noise. When placed behind your primary working chair, what we call the commanding position in Feng Shui, it provides a psychological and energetic backing, offering a spine of support like a symbolic mentor watching your six. For those needing more structure, fewer distractions, and clearer decision-making, the ficus becomes a silent accountability partner. It watches how you sit. It reflects how often you rise. Its growth mirrors your own productivity cycles. And if you're working in a space that lacks a window or is nestled in a corner, its bold foliage becomes the movement you're missing, Subtle, silent, yet grounding. Now look at hallways, particularly wide, open hallways that serve as connectors between rooms. In Feng Shui, these transitional zones often carry fast-moving qi that lacks grounding. We walk through these spaces daily, often unconsciously, and because of that, they become zones of unconscious energy dispersal. The ficus, when placed with intention in one of these wide transitions, helps define movement with clarity. It slows qi just enough to remind you that movement should have purpose. Think of it as a pillar of pause, a moment of steadiness between the living room's activity and the sanctuary of your bedroom. In long hallways where energy tends to rush, this plant acts like an architectural comma, a brief, grounding pause that recalibrates your flow before you enter the next energetic domain. But let's talk honestly about where the ficus does not belong. First and foremost, the bedroom, especially small or emotionally intense ones. The ficus is not a gentle plant. It radiates strong, upward, yang-dominant energy, which is perfect for spaces of action, clarity, or reinvention, but far too commanding for environments meant for restoration, intimacy, or emotional softening. Placing a ficus in a tight bedroom often results in sleep disturbances, unease, or subtle tension. It's not aggressive, but it is persistent, and its persistent energy doesn't fade at night. In couples' bedrooms, this can translate to conflict or indecision. In solo bedrooms, it may lead to overstimulation of the mental field, especially for those already dealing with high levels of inner pressure. If you love the look, go with a softer leaf plant that carries more yin, such as peace lily or hydrangea. The ficus has no business in your place of vulnerability. Avoid cramped corners as well. Many people make the mistake of tucking ficus plants behind couches, beside filing cabinets, or in triangular voids where no furniture fits. This is not only a disservice to the plant, it is symbolically suppressive. In Feng Shui, a plant's energetic field is not limited to its soil or its leaves. Its qi extends several inches around it, and when that space is compressed or blocked, the plant's ability to circulate energy is restricted. And what does that mean for you? It mirrors the restriction of your own potential. A ficus jammed against a wall becomes the metaphor for ambition, suffocating beneath the weight of obligation. Its roots need breathing room. Its trunk needs dignity. Its foliage needs open air, preferably with good airflow and indirect light. If you cannot give it vertical space to grow or physical space to unfurl, then delay the purchase or consider a different plant. And here's a micro Feng Shui tip that changes everything. Place your ficus in a tall ceramic or wooden planter, preferably in earth tones, to stabilize its energetic field. This not only raises the plant physically, allowing it to participate in the qi flow at waist or at chest level, but it also harmonizes the relationship between wood and earth elements. Wood alone can become too upward, too urgent. Earth grounds it. When combined properly, it creates sustainability. And for those looking to energize the plant even more, perhaps during moments of transition or personal growth, add a soft, upward-facing light behind the ficus. This sunrise effect mimics natural illumination and activates the growth energy gently, helping both the plant and the space to open with ease. You don't need spotlights, just warm, ambient glow. Enough to say to the universe, I am supporting my own structure. Let your placement of the ficus reflect your current chapter. Are you stepping into leadership? Place it beside your desk. Are you claiming a new identity in your career or family? Let it rise in your living room's wealth or recognition corner. Are you stabilizing a transitional phase? Use it to ground your hallway or common space. But whatever you do, don't place it thoughtlessly. This isn't a plant you forget. This is a plant you respect. And when you do, it will hold your structure for you, even when you're tired, uncertain, or adjusting your posture mid-journey. Number 3. How Michelle Obama used ficus in her post-White House life. When Michelle Obama left the White House in 2017, she didn't just step away from a historic role. She stepped into an entirely new energetic chapter, one that had little to do with protocols, motorcades, or public policy. She had spent 8 years in one of the most recognized homes in the world, a space shaped more by national symbolism than personal expression. But once she transitioned to private life, something subtle yet powerful began to emerge. A home that wasn't built to impress a nation, but to hold a woman rediscovering her inner rhythm. This wasn't just about privacy, it was about redefining presence. According to interviews from her interior design team and close collaborators, Michelle was deliberate about creating a space that felt grounded, intentional, and authentic to her next evolution. And among the many choices she made, 2 in particular stood out. 2 ficus lyrata plants, each chosen with purpose, placed not for decor, but for energetic alignment. One stood in the family sitting room. The other lived in her writing space where her memoir Becoming took form. And they weren't mere props. They were quiet pillars in the architecture of her redefinition. In Feng Shui terms, this wasn't an arbitrary choice. It was a masterful one. The ficus, especially the fiddle leaf variety, is not a shy plant. It's tall, present, and energetically upright. But unlike flashier plants that spread or explode with color, the ficus commands with restraint. It says, this space has roots. And that's exactly what Michelle Obama was building in those years. Not a larger public empire, but a deeper interior landscape. After 8 years of living in a place where every corner carried institutional energy, protocol, legacy, and surveillance, the ficus stood in her private home like a quiet rebellion against noise. It was structure without pressure, growth without spotlight. It didn't speak to ambition the way other design elements might. It spoke to integrity, not the kind imposed by titles, but the kind cultivated by stillness, self-inquiry, and emotional maturity. Let's pause here. In Feng Shui, we often speak about furniture, walls, and doorways. But the real architecture of a home, the one that shapes you, is energetic. It is made of flow, of intention, of unseen support. And that's what the ficus offered Michelle in that chapter of her life. She was no longer a first lady. She was an author, a mother, a woman confronting her next act without a script. And as she wrote one of the most honest and vulnerable political memoirs of our time, that ficus stood behind her desk like a sentinel of sovereignty, each leaf facing upward, each branch rising quietly, a mirror to her own process, growing through clarity, not applause, rising again, not to win votes, but to witness her own voice take root. Now imagine that same writing space without it, a room of beautiful furniture perhaps, a space designed by professionals. But without the ficus, it lacks posture. It lacks that gentle signal that says, I'm not here to be admired, I'm here to hold. And that's exactly what the ficus does when it's placed with intention. It becomes a piece of energetic scaffolding, not flashy, not dramatic, but unwavering. And this is especially powerful for those moving from a life of external definition to one of internal exploration. For Michelle, it was not just about beauty, it was about boundaries. Her home was no longer a national landmark. It was a space where she could undo, recalibrate, and rewrite. The ficus didn't decorate that journey, it fortified it. In your own life, maybe you're not stepping out of the White House, but maybe you're stepping out of something else, a demanding job, a phase of parenting, a career transition, or a personal identity that no longer fits. Maybe you're not trying to grow louder. Maybe you're trying to grow deeper. And in that case, the ficus becomes more than a plant. It becomes a witness to your rebuilding, a structural ally, a nonverbal affirmation that even if the world isn't watching anymore, you still deserve to rise with discipline, with vision, and with internal coherence. And that coherence doesn't come from speed. It comes from stillness, supported by structure. That's the message this mid-video story is really about. Not fame, not luxury, but recalibration, reinvention, and the gentle insistence that even after your most public chapter has ended, your most meaningful growth might just be beginning. And to hold that kind of transformation, you need more than affirmation. You need alignment. You need a home that doesn't echo your past, but that anchors your present, that lets you grow again, not for recognition, but for wholeness. And the ficus, with its proud stance and quiet strength, offers that exact frequency. It won't push you, but it will stand beside you, daily, patiently, with the kind of silent integrity that never asks for thanks, but always shows up. So when you think of bringing a ficus into your home, don't just ask where it fits visually. Ask where you are growing structurally. Ask what part of your life needs a quiet pillar, not a loud motivator. Ask what space in your home could benefit from witnessing your next season, not in decoration, but in devotion. Number 4, common mistakes to avoid. The ficus, with all its upright grace and architectural presence, offers clarity to a space only when it, too, is treated with clarity. Like any powerful energetic tool, it reflects what it receives. It magnifies the atmosphere it's given. So if you introduce it into your space casually or carelessly, expecting it to do all the energetic lifting, you're not just reducing its effectiveness. You're potentially creating subtle discord that accumulates over time. The first and most common mistake is overcrowding the base. This happens more than people realize. They bring the ficus into their living room or office with the right intentions, but then surround the pot with decorative baskets, random storage bins, forgotten paper bags, or even children's toys that somehow always migrate to the base of the plant. On the surface, it might look cozy, layered, perhaps even styled for aesthetic charm, but energetically, this is suffocation. In Feng Shui, the base of a plant is where its chi pulls downward and gathers strength. It's where stability meets soil. It's the grounding point that anchors the plant into the flow of the room. When we pile clutter around that base, we are symbolically choking the root of our own boundaries. The ficus begins to lose its vertical integrity, not because it isn't strong, but because we haven't respected its need for clean foundation. And just like a person who can't stand on solid ground can't carry out clear vision, a ficus with a congested base can't reflect clear structure. So clear that space. Let the base breathe. Treat the soil around it like the edge of a sacred well, empty, quiet, and full of unseen support. The second mistake is more subtle but more dangerous: forgetting emotional congruence. This happens when people try to use the ficus as a fix rather than a reinforcement. They place it in a space that is already chaotic, perhaps a family room filled with tension, a kitchen corner plagued by unresolved arguments, or a study desk that has become more of a mental battlefield than a space of clarity. They hope that the ficus will calm things, that it will absorb the noise and somehow create order from the mess. But here's what they don't realize. The ficus doesn't clean. It echoes. It is a reflective plant, not a purifying one. It mirrors the energy of the space it inhabits. If the room is reactive, unfocused, or emotionally loud, the ficus will begin to amplify that inconsistency. It will become droopy, brittle, or stagnant, not because it's unhealthy, but because the room itself is unbalanced. The ficus thrives in emotionally congruent spaces. That means, before placing it, take time to clear the energy, have the difficult conversation. Remove objects that carry unresolved emotional charge. Declutter not just physically, but symbolically. Wipe the surfaces, smudge if it suits your belief. Then introduce the ficus, not as a fixer, but as an agreement. An agreement that the space will now be held to a higher standard of structural and emotional clarity. Only then will it truly rise to its energetic potential. And then there's the third mistake, placing the ficus in sharp architectural corners or wedging it between angled walls that act like energetic knives. This is often done in spaces where design feels rigid or where there's not enough understanding of spatial flow. You'll see a ficus crammed into a corner where two walls meet at 90 degrees, pressed on both sides by furniture. Perhaps its leaves brushing against drywall, or its crown squeezed beneath a low ceiling or angled beam. From a design perspective, this might seem like a space-saving solution. From an energetic perspective, it's a directional conflict. In Feng Shui, we call this sharpening the qi, when the natural flow of energy is fractured by harsh geometry. The ficus, which is a plant of upward resilience and structural harmony, begins to feel pinched. Its leaves no longer move with ease. Its trunk doesn't expand. It survives, but it doesn't guide. It fights the space rather than settling into it. And worse, it starts transmitting that conflicted energy into the room. You might feel more irritable, more resistant, less creative, not because you're broken, but because the energetic scaffolding around you is misaligned. So if you must place a ficus near a wall, make sure it curves into the room, that its form has space to express itself without compression. Let it soften hard edges, not be shaped by them. Let it expand into a curve of calm strength, not be flattened into awkward compliance. The ficus is a teacher of posture, and like all good teachers, it can only do its work when it's not being forced into silence. In every one of these mistakes, overcrowding, emotional incongruence, and corner compression, the lesson is the same. Respect the structural intelligence of the ficus. It knows what kind of space it thrives in. It responds clearly to what it's given, and it will reflect back to you the health of your boundaries, the coherence of your emotions, and the openness of your architecture. So don't treat it like a generic plant. Don't use it as a placeholder in a neglected corner. Don't decorate around it with case. Treat it like a structural ally, a vertical guide, a mirror to the life you're building, not just the one you're decorating. Number 5, who should use this plant? The ficus is not for everyone. It does not bloom with delicate petals or release calming fragrances. It does not soften a space, it strengthens it. And because of that, it calls in a very specific kind of person or household or moment in life. It speaks to those who are standing at a threshold, not of beginning, but of definition. It is best suited for entrepreneurs who are not just chasing ideas, but beginning to carry the weight of their own leadership. These are individuals who have moved past brainstorming and into building. People whose days are no longer filled with raw experimentation, but with the discipline of refinement. The ficus holds structure, and when placed in a creative office, a conference room, or even a home workspace, it reflects back the clarity that leadership demands. It says, you are no longer preparing, you are responsible now. And responsibility, when held with integrity, is not heavy, it's stabilizing. This plan also resonates with adults entering the middle chapters of their career, not those in early hustle or late-stage mastery, but the ones navigating the most complex intersection of ambition and wisdom. Perhaps you've spent a decade proving yourself and are now seeking to redefine what success looks like on your terms. Perhaps you've stopped trying to impress and started trying to impact. That is the ficus moment. It doesn't root itself in applause. It roots itself in alignment. In this season of life, you don't need more momentum. You need grounding. You don't need more tasks. You need clearer vision. And the ficus, when placed in your living room, your study, or even beside your mirror, becomes a kind of vertical reminder that structure is not rigidity. It is clarity. And clarity is the highest form of respect you can offer your own evolution. Families entering new routines, especially those recovering from past instability or trying to establish shared rhythm, will also find deep support from the ficus. Imagine a household moving into a new home after years of transition. Imagine a blended family trying to create harmony, not just through compromise, but through shared structure. Imagine parents reclaiming order after a period of chaos, whether due to loss, illness, or economic upheaval. The ficus, placed in a shared space like a dining area or living room, becomes more than a decorative green. It becomes an agreement, a symbol that says, we are here to grow upright. We are here to establish rituals, to define responsibilities, to respect the vertical nature of healthy order. Its posture becomes a kind of quiet choreography for the household, an embodiment of what it means to rise together, not just coexist. It doesn't impose, but it inspires. It doesn't parent, but it does offer the subtle frequency of what parental energy should feel like: dependable, tall, observant, and non-reactive. And then there are the creatives, the artists, the writers, the designers, those whose gifts flow easily, but whose lives often lack the scaffolding to sustain them. For these souls, inspiration is not the problem. Containment is. They can dream, they can imagine, but holding the dream long enough to manifest it, that's where structure is needed. And that is where the ficus becomes an unexpected ally. Placed near an easel, a desk, or even in a studio's corner, it offers no artistic suggestion, but it provides energetic reliability. It stands silently as the artist fluctuates. It offers steadiness to those whose spirits naturally oscillate. And over time, it teaches one of the most vital creative lessons. Freedom does not disappear when structure arrives. It expands. The ficus becomes the frame around the canvas, the metronome to the melody, the spine of the story. But it must be said again, this is not a plant for early bloomers or those in need of softness. If your space is still in a phase of exploration, if your life is still spiraling with uncertainty and emotional turbulence, there are other plants more suited to that season. Hydrangea for compassion, bamboo for flexibility, peace lily for healing. But when softness becomes avoidance, when flexibility becomes boundarylessness, when exploration becomes stagnation, then, and only then, does the ficus step forward. It arrives not to push, but to hold, not to pressure, but to guide. Its leaves are not fragile. They are leathery, designed to endure. Its trunk does not sway easily. It is designed to persist, and its vertical energy does not scatter. It draws your awareness upward, quietly reminding you what it feels like to inhabit your own authority. Energetically, this plant belongs to those who are done apologizing for wanting order, to those who are no longer trying to blend in, but to rise inwardly first. It is for people who understand that adulthood is not a loss of joy, but a refinement of purpose, who know that home design is not just about aesthetic, but about alignment, and who are ready to move beyond mood and into meaning. If your life has become too emotionally flexible, too externally accommodating, too rootless to sustain what you're becoming, the ficus steps in like an energetic backbone, not to fix you, but to remind you that you were never meant to float. You were meant to rise, to root, to build. And this plant, this structured, bold, and reverent plant, will help hold you there until you remember how to hold yourself. There are some plants that you bring into your space to make it prettier, livelier, more colorful. They're showy, they're bright, they bloom fast and fade fast. They speak in petals, in fragrance, in performance. And then there are the other ones, The ones that don't ask for attention, but command it slowly, over time. The ones that don't chase the light, but hold it. The ficus is that kind of plant. It doesn't try to outshine the room. It helps the room remember how to stand. Because in the rhythm of real life, in seasons of deep work, in transitions of identity, in the rebuilding of routines and roles, we don't always need momentum. We need structure. We don't always need acceleration. We need orientation. The ficus doesn't grow ahead of you. It grows with you, quietly, firmly, at your pace, but only when you're ready to stand beside it, not behind it, not over it, but with it, as a peer, as someone who's ready to be seen, not just by others, but by yourself. In Feng Shui, we say that the true power doesn't disrupt, it steadies. And the ficus does just that. It becomes a witness to your daily structure. It holds a space when you're figuring out what you want that space to mean. It anchors the identity you are still building, not by speaking for you, but by reminding you that your presence alone is enough. So as you walk through your home today, I want you to pause, not just where the light hits prettily, not just where the plants bloom, but where your energy feels like it wants to rise. Where you need more support, not more color. Where you need more clarity, not more stuff. That's where the ficus belongs. That's where its roots can quietly hold your goals, your identity, your next season. It doesn't need to be flashy, it just needs to be respected. A ficus in the right place will change your home's posture. It will change your own. Because strength isn't always loud. Sometimes strength is quiet, upright, deeply felt, and never mistaken. So tell me, in your own home, where do you feel called to create more structure? More calm integrity? Do you already have a ficus? Is it thriving or has it become background noise? And if you don't have one yet, is there a corner of your home or your heart that's finally ready to welcome one in? Drop a comment below. I read every one. This channel isn't just about tips, it's about real energetic dialogue. Your home is speaking to you, and I want to help you listen. If this episode gave you clarity or helped you see your space or yourself in a new way, I invite you to do something small but meaningful. Share this video with someone who's stepping into a new role or refining their foundation. Maybe they're moving, maybe they're reorganizing, maybe they're quietly rebuilding after a hard chapter. Send this to them. Let the ficus stand in their space the way it may now stand in yours. And if you haven't subscribed to New Day Mindfulness yet, I warmly invite you to do so. We're growing toward 2,000 subscribers, and every single voice helps keep this channel alive. Not just as a space for aesthetics, but as a space for alignment. For people who don't want loud transformation, they want real rooted growth. And if that's you, you belong here. So until the next video, keep tending your space like it matters. Because it does. And sometimes all it takes to shift your energy is not to change everything, but to let one plant hold its ground long enough for you to find your own again.